Welcome to It's a Wonderful Life. I'm Peggy Hogan, Senior Citizen Coordinator for the City of Florissant. As people live longer, more and more senior citizens are living with dementia or memory loss. Statistics show that anywhere between 30 to 50% of older adults develop a memory disorder. Most of these people wish to remain at home, and the vast majority of care is provided by unpaid family caregivers. Today, I have invited a family caregiver and a healthcare professional to discuss dementia care at home. So please welcome to Florissant our healthcare professional, Jill Cigliana. Hope I said that right.
Got
okay.
It.
Welcome, Jill.
Thank you.
And Tom, our family caregiver, Tom Glaser.
Glaser.
Sorry, Tom.
That's
okay,
all right.
And welcome to Florissant.
Thank you.
Jill, let's start with you. You work for Memory Care Home Solutions, correct?
Right.
Tell me how all that started and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'll start with myself. I'm an occupational therapist, and I've been working with patients dealing with neurological conditions for the last 16 years. And I've been with memory care for the last 4 years. So it's really a wonderful opportunity. My experience has allowed me to see how brain function is so very important, and having a healthy brain is important. And for those who are living with a brain disease, it's very important to get the family to come to some understanding about what brain disease means and how it affects daily life. So I actually joined Memory Care Home Solution just as a supporter and an admirer of the mission. So what Memory Care Home Solutions is a non-for-profit organization with a real commitment to North City and North County. And our mission is to extend and improve quality time at home for families that are facing the challenges of Alzheimer's disease, another type of dementia, or really any type of memory loss. So it's a wonderful organization. Services are provided to families at no charge. In fact, we were recently given additional funding by Express Scripts to be a real presence in North County.
That's wonderful.
It is. North County is actually an older population than some parts of St. Louis. So this region is disproportionately affected with dementia because of the demographics of who lives here. So we're really happy to be a resource for the residents of North County.
And unfortunately, we see, like I had said in the opening here, 30 to 50%, that's a large percentage of senior citizens. And I know in my profession, just being in the office, pretty much dealing with independent living senior citizens, so many of them are affected by with their spouse or their brother or sister or neighbor. It's incredible, I think, how many people are affected by dementia and Alzheimer's.
Right.
And I guess that's what we could actually start with is what is the difference between someone with dementia or someone with Alzheimer's disease?
Absolutely, that's a very common question. So dementia is the umbrella term for any disorder of thinking skills or any impairment in, we call them cognitive skills, which is all of the functions of a healthy brain. So anybody who has a disorder in their thinking and memory skills has dementia. So it's a big umbrella definition. And then Alzheimer's disease is under that umbrella. It's a type of dementia, and it happens to be the most common type of dementia, although there are other forms. And sometimes people want to know, what's different about the other forms of dementia. And while there are subtle differences, the important thing for families to know is that regardless of what type of dementia it is, all dementia has more in common than it does in difference. It's a progressive brain disease that over time gets worse. For some people, that's a real gradual progression of the disease, and some people, it's a real noticeable decline. So good to know that Alzheimer's disease just happens to be the most common type of dementia.
Okay, all right. So what are some of the early signs and symptoms of dementia? Probably you, Tom, could answer that with being, Tom was a caregiver for your wife,
Yes.
right, Tom?
I was sent home by the company to go and find out what was wrong with my wife because my children wanted to know what was going on. Some of the things that I ran into was she would walk outside and she didn't know her house. She didn't know where to go. All of a sudden she would go into the bathroom and she'd pound on the door because she wouldn't know how to get out. She would take a cup of coffee and put it in the microwave for 90 minutes. And I just happened to be walking by when I saw that, you know, I says, what is going on? Then she totaled 2 cars, and by then my kids were beating me over the head. There's something wrong with Mom.
Wrong.
And so, you know, those were some of the things that I saw.
Okay.
Later on in life, she would do different things, like she wanted to sing in a choir. She loved to sing. Well, we didn't belong to a choir. But knowing the circumstances after she was diagnosed with dementia, then we decided to join a choir. Pretty soon she wants to play the piano. I don't know how to play a piano, but I had one at the house, and I tried to teach her how to play the piano. No, I couldn't do that. She couldn't get the piano. But we did end up buying her a small guitar. She never had a guitar lesson in her life. And she sit with the choir, and she strummed the guitar, and she thought she was playing the Mass.
Now, are things like that common, Jill?
Well, not everybody wants to master the choir or a new instrument.
Yeah, but I
once
mean,
they have
like
dementia,
different.
But the symptoms that Tom described are absolutely, completely normal. So what he mentioned was difficulty with the household appliances, something that we take for granted is easy to operate the microwave. So people have a real hard time with any technology. Can become a challenge, from the telephone to the thermostat to the TV remote. And these things are challenging for even people with great minds sometimes, because technology can be complicated.
Yes.
But people often ask us, what's the difference between normal aging and dementia? Because it's normal to walk into a room and forget why you went there. It's normal to misplace your keys from time to time.
Yes.
But what's not normal is when that forgetfulness is occurring so frequently that it's affecting daily life. So when it affects your ability to find your way around your home, when it affects your ability to heat up your cup of coffee, when it affects your ability to keep track of your bills and manage your balance your checkbook. So when memory loss starts to affect everyday function, we know that it's not normal aging, that it is a brain disease.
I might mention right now that my wife kept a very clean house. We had 5 children. She cooked delicious meals. All of a sudden the meals are disappearing. The cleanliness in the house is gone. What's going on? Well, I was working sometimes 2, sometimes 3 jobs in order to make sure I had enough money for everything for my 5 kids. Didn't notice any of this. But it was there, and the kids noticed it.
Yeah.
Because I was home, boom, 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 like that. Another thing, sometimes a person like that will miss someone. She would call me at the office, crying. Now I go to work at 6 in the morning. She calls me at 9 o'clock in the morning crying. She's still in bed. I want you to come home. I want you to come home. I don't feel good. Something's wrong. Something's, you know. So I went home and, oh, well, she's having a little problem this week or whatever. Still denying it. Still denying it. Go ahead, Jill.
Again, Tom's experience is totally common. This is what we see in almost every family that we serve. You know, his kids, like he said, were beating him over the head. Dad, something's wrong. And why he didn't see it for so long is why many people don't see it initially, is because these symptoms start very gradually. They creep in over time, and the person doesn't have the insight to tell you that things are changing initially.
I guess does the patient usually know that, do they realize that there's something wrong, like you said,
There's
your
something
wife?
wrong.
Yes,
That's what they
something wrong.
realize.
Yeah.
My wife would say, why can't I do this anymore? Why can't I do that anymore?
Yep.
We, at the doctor's advice, we never told my wife, Marge, that she had dementia. He says, why? There's no reason to tell her. She doesn't know. And so we never told her, you know.
So you never did, even through, okay.
No.
Okay.
It wouldn't have mattered anyhow. And she says, well, what is that? Well, should I worry about that? She was past that stage.
Okay.
I might go back. My children, when she was diagnosed with dementia, she just got dementia. The doctor said, no, she didn't. We're talking to your kids. And your kid says they noticed things 10 years ago. Just starting. Well, I says, maybe a little ditzy here and there, getting a little older, it's no big deal. But it was, but I didn't see it.
And I think that's why his family chose not to disclose to Marge. Most people like to know that there's a reason for what's happening to them. So most people, when it can be caught early, and people can be caught at an early stage of dementia, it's generally advised to let people know about their diagnosis, because there are things you want to do and plans you want to put in place if your memory is going to decline further. So most of the time it's advised that you let people know about their diagnosis.
I would imagine each case is so different.
In 10 years into the disease, he could have explained to her that she had dementia, and she would not have remembered it, and that is the right thing to do.
But see, I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ran into a person just yesterday at Mass and found out that she's been diagnosed with dementia, and I talked to the husband, and she had been a nurse, and he says, yes, we've told her because this is early, but she had a mother and a father, both had dementia, and they took care of them. So they know what to expect and stuff. But he says, I'm still looking for an organization that can help me, such as the Alzheimer's or memory care or something like that, see. So there's still that need out there.
So can you tell me some of the risk factors of developing dementia?
Sure, absolutely. So basically any risk factor for heart disease is also a risk factor for brain disease.
Really?
Yes, because really, if your brain isn't getting a good supply of oxygen, it's not going to work properly. So anything that affects your circulation and your heart also affects your brain. So hypertension, diabetes, and high cholesterol are 3 of the main risk factors for developing dementia. So it's really important for people to know if they can manage their high blood pressure, manage their high cholesterol, and manage their diabetes, they will lower their risk of developing dementia.
So that is, my next question is there anything you can do to help prevent it? That would be how?
And sometimes there's no preventing dementia because there's a genetic predisposition. And unfortunately, we see people every day who have done everything right, who eat healthy diets and exercise and keep themselves mentally challenged, but still develop Alzheimer's disease.
I know there's so many times you hear of someone and that's exactly what you think. You think, oh my gosh, that person exercised and did all this stuff, did what they were supposed to do.
Right.
And they still
And I like people to know that so that people don't feel personally responsible for developing dementia. But there are things that we know lower the risk or slow the decline of impairment in the brain. And the very best evidence we have is that physical exercise, aerobic activity, 30 minutes, 5 days a week, is protective for brain health. So it's the exact same recommendation of the American Heart Association. Yes, so 30 minutes, 5 days a week, and that 30 minutes can be in 10-minute intervals here and there, but the important thing is to keep the heart rate up and keep your body moving. That's our best evidence is for physical exercise. There's also some good research behind a healthy diet like the Mediterranean diet. So that's
which is what?
So the Mediterranean diet
Basically
is basically colorful fruits and veggies with whole grains is the most important thing that you would eat. And then lean meats, so fish and poultry, and healthy fats like olive oil, almonds. And so those would be the good things you're trying to eat. The things you're trying to avoid are a lot of red meat, a lot of high-fat dairy, and fried foods. So it's kind of a lean, healthy.
Yeah, kind of what we know already.
Right. This is not new information.
No.
No.
As I mentioned earlier, the families are who usually start out, or probably almost always start out as caregiving, like you have, Tom.
Well,
or it's a gradual thing, I guess, huh?
Yeah. My children decided there was something wrong with their mother. They didn't know what. I was working 7 days a week. Home, she was fine in the evening with me, and that was just great. And then I go to work the next day, and then she started to call. That's what kind of started it. And like I said, she totaled 2 automobiles, and the kids kept saying, "When are you going to learn? When are you going to wake up?" Well, that's just a mistake. She stepped on the gas instead of the brake. I can't help it. People make mistakes, and I'm alibiing for everything. I took her to a lot of doctors. I had to quit work and come home and take care of her. Took her to a lot of doctors. They diagnosed her with, not with Alzheimer's, with depression, anxiety. We had pills, and none of it was working. They would say, well, get you in this session, everything. Nothing, still did not have a diagnosis. So I went to WashU because I now have a wife that I've got to stay home and take care of. I want the best for her. I mean, we were married 55 years and together 61. And so we went to WashU and to their neurology department down there, and Dr. Gershall looked at her, tested her out, and so on like that. She tests positive, but she had chronic pain. Also, the cancers that she had years ago had come back, see, but she had this chronic pain. Well, chronic pain, I don't know these words. I'm a produce guy. See, I just know fruits and vegetables. I'm with everything she says. You can buy them off of me. So anyhow, she says, we can't diagnose it as being dementia because there's too many other things wrong. She's got cancer, she's got chronic pain, this and that. So we went to the Mayo Clinic. We went to WashU, who had said, go do what you have to. So we went up to the Mayo Clinic. We got rid of the chronic pain. It was funny. She couldn't find her way out of a bathroom. She didn't know how to use anything or do anything, but she got rid of the chronic pain because they told her, or she went to school up there for 3 weeks. And I stayed up there, and we had a very good time together. I mean, it was one of the best times. Then we come back down, but they did diagnose her with dementia there. They did all these tests and everything and says, no, she's got dementia. Okay. So we come back down to St. Louis, and I crash. How am I going to take care of this woman? I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. So it just so happened that I found a card from Memory Care Home Solution that says, to keep a person in your home. Well, I plan on keeping her in my home. I didn't know where to turn. I mean, it's the worst 3 days of my life. So I decided to give him a call. I got a hold of a man named Steve up there. He came down to the house. We talked. He says, you're going to have to do some things. He says, how bad is Marge? So we talked about it. And he says, you need to take the matches away, take the candles away, take the knives and put them up where she can't get them. She could hurt herself.
At the beginning of this, Tom, was Marge, your wife, included in these conversations, or was it just you and Steve?
No, it was just Steve and I.
Okay.
She had went to a doctor or something that day. My daughter came and took her that day. After that, then we included her, but she kept saying, well, how come I can't write out any checks anymore? We have to deal with that. How come I can't drive anymore? Well, that was very difficult.
Yes.
So we talked to the doctor. Doctor went to see her. She went to see the doctor, and the doctor says, Marge, I think you've had 2 accidents and you haven't killed anybody yet. So how about having me have the keys? And she says, okay. It don't happen like that all the time.
It's probably easier like
Absolutely.
that, isn't it, than a family member.
Yeah, and then crazy things happen. She started to not take her medicine. That's very, most people get that way. They don't want to take the medicine after. In the beginning, yeah, right down. Now she don't. All of a sudden, she's eating less. But my biggest hope that came out of the situation, and I want everybody out there to hear that, is I found an adult daycare that she could go to. And the first time I took her to the adult daycare, I knew she wasn't going to like this,
Right.
but she wanted to volunteer. So I took her in as a volunteer, talked to Kathy up there. Kathy says, bring her in as a volunteer. I says, okay. So I came and spent the day with her. Oh, she says she just loved these people, you know.
Oh,
and it was great. It was, you know, and that gave me time. That gave me 8 hours. So I was doing it once a week. And then maybe twice a week, Kathy says, why don't you leave her here? 6 days a week. I says, I can't do that. I said, she ain't gonna put up with that. Dropped her off 6 days a week. Started right there. But I got to tell you, as it gets worse, there's good things and there's bad things. She was there the first day, and she come home and she showed me a paper doll. And I says, this is what my wife is down to now.
Yeah.
And I cried hard because they were helping her. They had all kind of things going on with her and everything. But then after a certain period of time, eventually, it went downhill. She didn't want it anymore. She wouldn't take her pills anymore. We crushed them and put them in ice cream and everything. That gets down. Then she didn't want to eat anymore. She wouldn't take a shower. I couldn't give her a shower at home. And I know some friends that will hire people to come in and give them showers. You know, she wouldn't take it at home, but yet she would at the adult daycare. And then it got to a point where I had to pick her up and put her in a car and tie her with a seatbelt in the car to take her to the adult daycare. She didn't want to go anymore. She didn't want to live practically, you know.
Yeah.
But we got by that. Then eventually she had to go to the hospital from being dehydrated. And they said to me, and you know, I don't know. when the doctor says, you're not going to take her home, are you? Yeah, I'm going to take her home. I had her home for 5 years. He says, it's a mistake. It's a real mistake. And it's probably the hardest thing I ever did was put her in a nursing home.
Okay.
I mean, I sent out 40 semis a night to 15 states, but it was not as hard as taking care of her. But the one thing I think we have down here, the one thing that got me through it was we loved each other. And we had 12 grandkids, and we were together all those years. And we had our religion, and we had everything going good for us except this, you know.
Yeah.
And you pray to God and you say, hey, will you cure this? There's no cure.
Yeah.
So there's no way back. So my prayer to God was, help me to be good, you know, and healthy so that I can take care of her.
So you did end up, having her in a nursing home, correct,
Yeah,
to care
for
her?
5 months
Okay.
before
Okay.
she died. And a cancer killed her. It wasn't the dementia,
I'll
but
be back.
she did not know who I was at the end. She didn't know her
did
kids.
not,
She didn't know
okay.
anybody.
But I think Tom's sharing of his personal story is so powerful because families need to hear a real account about what it takes to care for a loved one with dementia, and his story is so real, and so many people will relate to it that I'm honored that he's willing to share with everyone. Truly, I mean, it's
Yeah, I am
important. It's
too.
important for people
I might
to
say
hear.
one more thing about caregivers right now is if you were like me, I can do it, and I can do it alone, and you can't do it alone. I had 4 kids that lived here. They were over all the time. I'd have to call them and help get her out of bed, get her dressed so she could go to adult daycare. When she come home in the evening, you know, on the weekends, I was crazy. I go over to the kid's house, spend 2 hours, 3 hours. You know, neighbors would come in and say, we're going to give you 2 hours. Go do what you need to do. If nothing else, go rest.
And that's the important takeaway, is that it's not a one-person job. Caregiving is a 24/7 job. One person cannot do the job and maintain his or her own physical and emotional health. So I think the takeaways from Tom's story are that it's not a one-person job. The disease changes, like he said, things were great initially, and then they changed, and then you have a new set of challenges. But then you overcome those challenges, but a couple months down the road, you might have a new set of behaviors or symptoms to deal with. So you need as much, it takes a village, is very true.
That's right.
You need your informal village of family and friends, and you need your formal village of physicians and people like us at Memory Care Home Solutions, the Alzheimer's Association. We are really fortunate in this region to have resources for people who have memory impairment. So I hope that everybody who tunes in for your show will feel really interested in reaching out and learning about the resources, because there are options available for people who want to keep a loved one at home. I mean, the fact that Tom did this for 10 years without even knowing he was a caregiver, for 5 years at home, and the nursing home was just a tiny slice of his caregiving. I mean, it's 5 months, which is like a drop in the bucket of the hours he spent caregiving, is a real testament to the dedication of caregivers. And like Tom, most caregivers don't, like, we're using the word caregiver today. Most family members do not think of themselves as caregivers. No. And every day I meet with people who tell me, well, what do you mean caregiver? This is my wife. I'm not a caregiver. But we want people to know that if you make a phone call twice a week to check on somebody who you are worried about their memory, you are a caregiver. If you're a neighbor to somebody with a memory impairment and you're a little bit worried about them, you are a caregiver. Caregiver just means anybody who's concerned and trying to be helpful to the person with memory loss. So for anybody out there who cares about somebody with memory loss, we are available to help those caregivers. Whether you live in the same house with a person or you live a state away and you call and check on the phone every day, there are all different kinds of caregivers.
So who would you suggest, if one of our viewers are watching today, who would you suggest they call if they find themselves, which I think, as we know, there's so many people out there with this problem, or with this challenge, I guess is what it is. So who would you say they should call from here if they're watching today?
Well, I would suggest if there's not a diagnosis and you just think something could be wrong, there really are 3 important phone calls to make. Number 1, call your family physician, because there are some things that look like dementia. Tom mentioned depression. There are some treatable things that cause a change in your thinking skills, and those things can be reversed. So you have to start with your physician. Let them know your concerns and let them check to see if you have any treatable cause for the change in thinking skills. And then the next 2 calls would be a call to the Alzheimer's Association to get connected with information and their support programs, and a call to Memory Care Home Solutions so that we can come out to your home and set you up for success on the caregiving journey. So those are 3 really important calls to make.
That's good, and I think that's what people need to know,
I might also mention,
Certainly.
There's a 4th there. You have St. Louis U and you have Worcester U that have not so much the programs, they do the diagnosing,
I know we've had Worcester U for their memory and aging program. We've had them out actually on this program before. So
and that's important, because to think they have that, like Jill says, they might have something that's treatable. Well, we were treating Marge for a lot of things and nothing was happening. Nothing was working. So then we says, well, wait a minute, we gotta, and there was one doctor here that says, you know, I've treated her now for about 3 weeks, and he says, I think she has dementia. I said, you're out of your mind. And I stormed out of the place, and I went back and apologized later because she did. He says, I just see this, see? And I was still saying, no, she doesn't, you know. And the kids are saying, well, there's something else wrong besides what you're having her treated for. So.
Well, and I would imagine over the course of all those years that you've cared for her, there's probably, it probably certainly affects or could affect the health of the caregiver, the family member, usually, right? I mean, I would imagine you see that. I've seen that. Just people coming in the office that look like they're just drained. They're so tired from caring for their spouse or their mother.
That if I hadn't had the help that I had, I would not be here today. Even at the adult daycare, they told me, they says, Tom, you're going downhill. You're going to have to make some other margins, you know, etc. like that, you know, go see a doctor, go see this and that, you know. And I really believe I wouldn't be here today if it was because of that.
Well, it's probably something to admit that it's okay to not do it all yourself. It seems like your spouse would feel like they should be doing all of this, but it's like that you almost need to hear, you know, you don't need to do it all. You have to do something for yourself.
In Tom's case, he needed to hear that from like 12 people before he believed it. But it's so true that the stress of caregiving takes a physical health toll on the caregiver. And we see it all the time, that the healthy, well spouse ends up in the hospital or passing away before the spouse with dementia. And that's
seen that myself.
Preventable.
It's so sad.
It's horrendous.
It is.
You know, that's why caregivers need help from the onset, from the beginning, so that they have some built-in rest periods, some built-in breaks from caregiving, and that they have the help they need.
I have a lady right across the street, her and her husband. They've been there for 35 years that we've been in our house. And she backed out and ran over her husband and broke both of his legs. And then since then he's had this and this infection, that infection. It's been about a year and a half now. She's lost 65 pounds. And she looks like skin and bones. But she still wants to bring him home. She still don't want him going into a thing, and we can't convince her of that. But you know, he's in rehab right now again.
I mean, I think some people need to just hear that it's okay to do that.
Yes. You know, and she says, well, I can take better care of him, and she can't. We know that.
Yeah.
And so, but
and sometimes it's just best for the patient and the caregiver, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean, you know, I think sometimes probably as a spouse you feel like you should care for them at home, but it's probably better for you all to, when it comes to some point maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, so, you know, our mission is to extend and improve time at home, but it's not always possible or safe or realistic for everybody to stay at home. So, and it's, like you said, there's a lot of guilt and complex emotions involved in caregiving. So that's another reason for families to reach out, because then they get a neutral assessment by a professional who can say, look, this isn't safe for either of you anymore. And the end result is, you know, by moving into a care setting, you'll actually end up having more quality time together. Quality time that can be spent doing enjoyable activities versus struggling to force somebody to bathe who doesn't want to bathe, or crushing medicines and, you know, delivering them through pudding. I mean, if you have an opportunity to have formal care involved, that allows spouses to have quality time again. And
that would be a wonderful thing to hear.
Yes.
After 5.5 years of taking care of her at home, and she had to go to the hospital because she was dehydrated. Okay, and that's when I put her into Nazareth. And the day I got her into Nazareth, I said, thank God. Because I was 5 minutes away. I went up for every meal. I was there, helped them clean off the tables, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, everybody knew me up there, you know, and took care of it. So I know she was taken care of. And I had a peace of mind. And when it was time for her to go, that was okay.
So Tom, you volunteer for Memory Care Solutions,
Yes.
right? And that's really how I met you. You had come to my office asking questions about having a resource fair to get some of this information out in the community, which I was in the market for having a resource fair and was approached by a few other people, so we did it last
Put
year.
it together.
And I think it was really successful.
Very,
I mean,
very
we had
successful.
hundreds of people there, and I think if anyone's interested, if their parent or their spouse or anyone, or even for the future, no one knows what the future holds for them. We're doing this again this year, which brings us to a little advertisement of our resource fair. The City of Florissant is partnering with Memory Care Home Solutions. We have a few other sponsors. We have St. Catherine Retirement Community, Life Care Center of Florissant, and Bentwood Rehab and Nursing Center, but we're all getting together and giving another resource fair for 2016 to get this kind of information out in the community. And I know that's what you were doing last year, Tom, when you came to my office, and it's a great way to come and just come to your booth or your table, pick up brochures or information, or talk to the person that is here from Memory Care Solutions. We have people from different retirement centers. We have veteran care information out there. I'm trying to think.
Adult
we've got
daycare, which
adult
Tom
daycare.
mentioned.
We have all kinds of information at this resource fair, which will be held at the City of Florissant, our community center, the James J. Egan Center at Parker and Waterford, on April the 12th. It's a Tuesday, just from 9 a.m. to 12 o'clock noon. You don't have to be a Florissant resident. Anyone can come here to this fair. It's open to the public. So
It's free.
It's free. And we'll have over 75.
Donuts.
And we
Donuts.
Don't forget the donuts.
Coffee and donuts.
We have free coffee and donuts. We have attendance prizes, which go over very well. You don't have to be present to win those, but that's always a plus. But the important thing is over 75 booths of senior citizen information that senior citizens can come, or you don't even have to be a senior citizen. Like I said, a daughter, a son, a neighbor can pick up information that you want to get out to families in the community. So mark your calendars for the 2016 Aging My Way Resource Fair here in the City of Florissant, Tuesday, April the 12th at the James J. Egan Center. So before we close, though, today, I'd like to see if you guys have anything else you'd like to share with our viewers.
Sure, I would just encourage those 3 phone calls we talked about. Can I give our phone number?
Certainly.
Okay, so the phone number for Memory Care Home Solutions is 314-645-6247. Our services are provided at no charge to families, and we come out to the home, so there's no barrier
That's
for
wonderful,
people
yes.
to accessing our services. And we welcome anybody who's worried about a loved one, diagnosis or not. Feel free to give us a call.
Okay, we have your phone number. Do you have a web address?
Yes, we do have a website, and I'd encourage everyone to visit. It's www.memorycarehs for home solutions.org. And I'll repeat it one more time. It's a long one. www.memorycarehs.org.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you,
you.
Jill. And how
Thank
about you,
you.
Tom, before we
Of course, I always
close
have
for the
something
day?
to say. One of the places that you can get most of the information is this health fair that's being held here. You go around and just get yourself a bag and start putting information. I had a man come up to me yesterday, and I found out his wife is starting with dementia, and he says, I picked up brochures at the thing, so I have some information. And you know, whether you're starting out, whether you know somebody, and that's a big thing. If you know somebody that seems like they may start with dementia or something like that, you know, pick up information from them too. Because you got to start somewhere, and I started nowhere. Of course, I was denying everything, see. And so finally, when I get into the thing, So now I put on health fairs with memory care backing me, putting on health fairs. We'll have them in South County, we have them here or there, and we just happened to run into you last year, which was perfect.
It's worked out very well for
really
both
has.
of us, I think.
And thank you
That's
for
a good
having
thing.
us.
Yeah,
Well, and I want to
absolutely.
thank you
Pleasure.
both for
Appreciate it.
joining me here on It's a Wonderful Life.